I've already swore and we're live, so that's good. Yeah. So we are live with season 4, episode 2. We're in the 2025-26 season. Probably our penultimate episode before Gameweek 1 starts, and we've promised to sort of discuss things today like penalty takers, an update on a lot of the data vision that we were sharing last week, and then a little bit more insight in terms of DEFCON, plus share kind of our preliminary drafts at this stage. So let's just get started. Chatham, what are we kind of looking at here?
Yeah, so I think we agreed last week, right? Oh, so hi everyone, first of all, but it's been a little chaotic. So we agreed last week that we'll just input our penalty shares, what we feel they should be for every club, because I don't know, maybe this is recency bias, but there is a lot more uncertainty, especially because, like, for example, you're looking at Isaac, right? Who we still don't know what's going to happen when the transfer window or by the time the transfer window closes. So right now, what we're trying to do is apportion his complete penalty share to others, but at the same time keep his penalty share in case he does come back. And there's also uncertainty with other picks like Kluivert and other players. So maybe that's why we felt like it's a good exercise to go through before deadline. And as everyone knows, the deadline is less than a week away. So we feel like now is a good time to take stock because we don't expect a lot of things to change compared to, let's say, last week or maybe even before that.
Yeah. Just an interesting sort of tidbit as well. Apparently, Justin Kluivert has a calf injury. So it seems
Okay.
like that's the reason why he's not been in training, not been in any games so far. Which is also, like when you look at, for example, this graphic that we have here, we're almost assuming some things are happening. Like Kluivert's not even going to be around to start the season. Hence why we
Yeah.
have the pen share obviously over 100 cumulatively. So it's almost like our perception of minutes, but clearly because with the Kluivert situation, he's like a 100 or nothing, but he can always play less minutes. We're almost treating everyone else, I think, so far as if like in the Bournemouth camp that they're actually just going to play without Kluivert. In some other teams, obviously you see like in Arsenal, for example, this is almost us baking in Gyökeres playing less minutes, or not a full 90, etc. And what that kind of
Hmm.
means. So should
I
we
think
just go on?
you've done a better job with Arsenal because I saw someone in the chat, Lars, saying Fran has 125% Arsenal penalty share, but I think that is justified because what you've done is you've incorporated a possibility that Gyökeres doesn't start, and then that
Yeah,
penalty
or
share
he
is assigned to
gets
Saka.
subbed early, right?
Less minutes,
Because
sorry. I
yeah,
mean less minutes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you've actually done the right thing here, I feel like, but I don't know. I have more confidence that he plays better
mm,
minutes.
yep,
So I just tried to go for it. But then, as you can see later down the line, I have also used a similar logic to yours where I feel like Kluivert, obviously, when he's on the pitch, is 100% going to take the penalty. But right now, if he has a calf injury, we have to also distribute that entire penalty share between other players. So I feel like what you've done is probably more accurate in this case, but that's why we take averages, right? So we can at least get closer to a ground reality, hopefully.
yeah. I mean, um, it's an interesting piece on Gyökeres. I think what I was baking in here was just Arteta saying that he wasn't super fit to start the season. So I'm just thinking Havertz comes on a little bit more to start the season, and maybe I still have some faith that Saka takes penalties. But that,
Mm.
additional 20% is sometimes we have. Well, first of all, I think one of the issues with Arsenal is that some of their individual penalties are just very noisy because they've always gifted penalties away. So we're almost kind of looking at a scenario of, aside from the gifted penalties, what is exactly happening? Because it's going to be the same for Bruno when we get to United. Like he's,
Yeah.
we'll talk about him in a moment. But Aston Villa next one, I feel like we're actually strangely, and we weren't working on this together. We just kind of agreed to do this by the end of this week, and just we
Yeah.
haven't discussed actually like any of our kind of takes on penalty taking positions. So, I guess what makes you lean towards Watkins in the same way that I have? Well, with less certainty, I suppose.
Yeah. So honestly, when we spoke last week, I had Watkins at more than 80%, I would say. So the only reason for me going to 60% is Guesant, coming to the club, so I had incorporated his name, but obviously neither of us think he's going to take penalties all of a sudden.
Yep.
I think there's a fair few players who will be above him in the pecking order. Also, Morgan Rogers, right? Morgan Rogers being out, maybe we would have had him as well, but now we don't know if he's even going to start game week 1. Also, another factor in all of this is, I believe Fran, because Fran always utilizes review, I think, or I mean, as it should be, is tinkering with all X-Wings all the way up till the end of the horizon. So I'm sure Fran, because I did this before we started streaming, which is I changed penalty share according to like minutes decay. And then
Yep.
for some players, for example, Kluivert, I went up. So initially I had him lower, then I went up to 100% as
Mm-hmm.
the game weeks go on. So with all of this, with Watkins's uncertainty, and he did not start today, or is he still on the
Yeah,
bench?
I think he's still on the bench, but their
Okay.
their game was a little bit of a strange game because I feel like you can see that there was a lot of opportunities for them to play some of their more second string choice
Hamstring, yeah.
players. Like I think Tillemans only came on, for example, for the last like 10 minutes of the match from what I could see.
Mm,
But
mm.
then at the same time, again, did start. So it was a bit of a mixed lineup, and I think definitely an opportunity really just to give minutes to certain players as opposed to like they actually wanted to see what their first string team looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's why I think I feel like there's a lot of uncertainty around him. Now, admittedly, we signed Sesko now, so there's obviously no room for any of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if he's going to move in this window, but I don't know why I feel like there's some uncertainty, but
Yep.
I still feel like he is the favorite. And that's why I think even you have him at 70%, right? Because you also feel like there's some
I
uncertainty there.
Yeah, I do. Like
Yeah.
I think the fact scenarios last season, it's everyone likes to just look at the Watkins penalty goals and then just make a decision on it, but I think
Yeah.
it's just nonsense. Like his penalty goals, almost like conversion percentage, was so much worse before last season actually happened, and yet he was still given the opportunity to take 3 pens. Right,
Yes.
Tillemans went 0-1, then Watkins
Yeah.
went 2-1, then everyone else who's not at the club took penalties from that point on. So I just kind of think, if you're looking at a season again and Watkins is most likely going to be our starting striker, I kind of feel like he's going to get given penalties because he actually converted some last year.
Yeah.
But I like this could be wrong, right? Like Tillemans can take, McGinn can take. I wouldn't be surprised if either took, which is why we've still baked that in. And we've still kind of made it surmise 100% because I just feel like, in theory, at least one of these players will be on the pitch. So this is
Yes.
roughly
Correct.
our kind of aggregate pen share. We've already discussed Kluivert. I am very pro Semenyo taking a penalty.
Mm.
I actually think it's a complete toss up. I would probably even lean Semenyo. I just think he took a strong penalty last season. Evan Nilsson doesn't have an absurdly good record. I think he's 7 for 10. So
7-3. Yeah.
just under average. That doesn't mean much. It's still a small sample size. But emotionally, I guess as a manager, Semenyo is your main man. Like we like our what's our general consensus on this channel? If you're a big alpha dog, you take pens. I'm not sure if Evan Nelson's quite like that. I think Semenyo, it seems like he's been quite generous, I suppose, because he is kind of their most important player, and yet he hasn't forced his way into pens. But he took a penalty last season in an FA Cup match versus Everton,
Yeah.
and it was a good strike. So I kind of feel like he's put his name in the hat basically, and that's kind of where I'm at. I really couldn't tell you who's gonna score, but I would probably lean Semenyo at this point.
You make a strong case, and again, I have considered that, but I just feel like if a striker by default, if a striker has a chance to score more goals,
Yep.
I don't think even Semenyo is going to proactively try to not let him take penalties. But at the same time, you're right. If the manager tells them beforehand that Semenyo is the main penalty taker, that's not going to be up for discussion. So it's really, like you said, it's a toss up. But I feel like it's more weighted towards Evan Nilsson because I'm just looking at historical records of all strikers in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, it could be just that Evan Nilsson is not that guy who's going to ask for penalties or not ask, actually, just take the ball. So we'll have to wait and see. But I am very strongly inclined towards Evan Nilsson taking them. So that's why I have them at 70-30.
Yeah. No, I'm with you as well. And I think when we look towards Brentford, we've both baked in Igor Thiago isn't going to play perfect minutes to start the season. And I think part of this is not just necessarily that we think he can be benched or something like that, but just he's someone coming back from a pretty long-term injury. I feel like with
Yes.
all the type of signings that Brentford are making, you can easily see or foresee at least that they can play someone false nine. Like I think in yesterday's friendly, what I was looking at was when Jordan Henderson came on for Igor Thiago. I think that was Fabio Carvalho moving into the false nine position.
True.
And if Dango comes in, I think he's clearly someone who can do that. Shadi is someone who can do that. So yeah, I Carvalho has taken some penalties previously. I think he's 3 for 4.
Mm.
I Yeah, I think Thiago is on pens, and we're both assuming Weiss is not going to be around, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
But to be fair, even if Visa is around, would we divide the pen share between him and Igor, or do you think just
No,
Visa would?
I'd probably think Weisa would take, but
Okay.
yeah, so that's why we've assumed.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely assumed Visa is leaving
Yeah,
based on everything we've seen, even the
it's a good point
Brentford
actually.
dynamics.
Yeah, maybe I wouldn't be on Weisa because I'm not sure if he's actually taking that many penalties
Yeah,
himself.
that's what I forgot
Um,
to check that, but
he scored.
maybe.
I think
Yeah.
he's definitely scored for country and maybe when he was
Hmm.
in league if I'm right.
Yeah, I think he
But
was in league.
I'm not quite sure. To be honest on that. Um,
You can have a look.
yeah, in Brighton
Move
we've
on.
got.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can have a look at that in the meantime. In Brighton, I have to say my Jorginho pen share is like, I don't even know how to start with this. Like right now, for example, when I'm making solves, I don't actually have him with pen share, but we've got Welbeck with 2 friendlies back to back where he's playing with a B team. I still expect Welbeck to play decent minutes this season, but I wouldn't be surprised actually, like if he wasn't just a huge part of their plans this year.
Hmm.
Because Jorginho seems more than capable of playing striker, and he has done so in the last 2 games. Either way, he plays in the 10 position. And then obviously, Hertzler dropped a bombshell, but is it a bombshell if it actually came out of Fabian's mouth? Because this guy's absolutely loaded, loaded
Exactly.
with just like
Exactly.
fresh BS to spew. So,
Yep. Yeah.
he said he's not sure who's the penalty taker. He said he's seen people in training take them. And I think that puts everyone's name in the ring. But Jorginho has taken penalties previously, and so has O'Reilly, which is kind of why I've put them in this order. Because if we go by the conventional logic of striker takes pens, alpha dog takes pens, I kind of feel like this is the order if we
Yep.
exclude Welbeck from the scenario. And I think I've been generous to Welbeck here because I think it's almost like a baking in a little bit, sorry, of reduced minutes for Welbeck
Mm.
potentially, and then yeah, hard to say because I wouldn't even be that confident he 100% is on pens, especially after Fabian's quotes. But maybe I'm a little bit too low on Welbeck. Um, so yeah, maybe you want to walk us through your thoughts.
No, so only I think the only bit that you told me about, which is a great insight, is O'Reilly seems to be a good penalty taker as well, and that is something that could also be the case because you can clearly see I did not um, include him at all in my thoughts. But maybe you're right. Maybe Welbeck is at that stage where I should account more for him getting injured or playing less minutes in general. So because I think Reuter played for number 9, right? After Welbeck got subbed out, and he also scored today. So maybe there's more of a potential to be at least, let's say, something like 60-40. And then obviously, like you said, maybe not even 60-40 because 60 is assuming Welbeck is on the pitch for a large period of time. But if he's not, then there has to be some pension accounted for, which would go to a third person like O'Reilly. Or I think you even spoke about IRE, right? So the whoever is going to be on pitch, who's taken penalties in training, and that I think is just it doesn't matter to be honest because it's none of the players we are going to consider for our teams. So it's good in a way because we don't need to worry about that.
Yeah, actually,
Whoever's going to be the third.
one name I forgot to mention, but this is going to be a little bit crazy. But De Kuiper has taken a lot of penalties too. He's taken 9 penalties, um, or 10.
Okay, that
But
was the one name you probably could have said. I
but
forgot about it.
he scored
Yeah.
9. I just think it's a bit of a tough one because I just think, do you want your penalty taker to be your defender sometimes? I'm not quite sure. But he really could take. Um, and I've not put him in this list, so let's just say we said it at least, but then could have missed the trick. For Burnley, I've elected not to answer because I didn't even want to bother looking. But this is Fleming and Marcus Edwards, presumably. Any
Yeah.
thoughts?
Again, minimal thoughts. I just looked at who's taken penalties and what preseason. I think preseason Edwards has taken one. That's why I had him at 20%. But again, it's very minimal impact for our fantasy team, so we can quickly move on. I managed to check Visa's record. It's 6-1 in the top leagues,
Okay.
including African Cup of Nations.
Right.
But
Oh,
if you
nice.
only look at like his whole career, it's even better. But it includes League Two and even lower leagues. So I don't know how much weightage you want to place on those. It's 12 and 2, I think. So he's scored 12 and missed 2 overall.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good.
Chelsea, I don't think we need to say much. It's Palmer and
Yeah,
Pedro.
yeah,
Crystal Palace, I think we're aligned on as well. It's just Eze actually took some pretty clean pens after one of his big
oh yeah,
misses, right? So it's just we just think he's still on pens, and the 20% chance is like Glasner's has always kept that open in the air, and
yeah.
obviously slight uncertainty about Eze, but I feel like between the two of them, someone should always. Well, I guess look, if we were being super serious about this, I guess Sar has some really
Hmm.
minimal share because there's a world where Eze subbed off for like 5 minutes, but I'm sorry, I didn't account for it in this context.
So,
Let's just
but
move
you know
on.
what the problem is with giving Sar some pension. The biggest problem is that EV boost he's going to get. I don't think it's warranted, and that should
Hmm.
really not change your plans because, like you said, these scenarios are going to be so far and few in between that why do you even want to consider them, right? If you're trying to generate expected value and solve, I just feel like you can just leave it out.
I think that's fair. For Everton, I feel like I would probably say Beto slash Barry. I think that probably
Barriers.
covers
Yeah,
both of us. Barry's taking 2 penalties. I
yeah,
think he scored both.
yeah.
Beto, he's taking penalties as well, but I think NJ is going to take penalties as long as he stays in the team. Obviously, there's going to be some minutes where he could be subbed off, maybe like late 70s, in the 80s, and at some point in time, a striker will take a penalty. But that's kind of the only context where we see people taking penalties over him. So Beto slash Barry is kind of where we're at. Um, at Fulham, what do you kind of think is? So we think Muniz is gone because he's not a part of the squad that was in the preseason friendly tonight.
Mm,
So
mm.
we have Jimenez clearly as a penalty taker. And to be honest, like it could be just whoever comes in a striker, but then we have Wilson second because he's kind of your classic set piece taker.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on
I,
Wilson?
I I think both of us have the percentages as they are because of Raul's minute, and so whoever is going to be the second striker at Fulham, assuming Muniz leaves, obviously. If he doesn't, then I think we need to rethink that. But even if Muniz does stay, I think we can just replace Harry Wilson with Muniz, right? That's probably the extent of that.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, let's move on to the rest of the Premier League. Uh, Leeds. So interestingly, how do you have yours? Because you've got yours, I guess, exceeding 100. Is that because Pascal's not going to play all the minutes we think,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah. So
yeah,
when I asked Bruno about who's going to take penalties, he obviously said Strike because of last season. But then again, the expectation is that Strike is not going to be on the pitch a lot after Game Week 1. So again, mm, it's 50-50 is like maybe far too much. Maybe I could have kept it at like 40-40 or something like that. But I
right,
just went with trying to apportion as much pen share as I could to players who could actually be on the pitch. And so between Piro and Namech, I feel like at least one of them will always be on the pitch, which is why you can go with something like this.
yeah. And I've got to be honest, I just didn't update my spreadsheet, so uh,
Okay, fair. Yeah.
I think I literally
Fair.
I didn't look at the promoted teams at all, and
Hmm.
frankly, uh, it's in. I guess a lead striker could actually end up being in my team at one point this season, so I don't want to say they're irrelevant, but I think just even looking at last year's numbers, I think Piro actually took a few. But then Nemeka actually has like pretty good records. So
Hmm.
if Pascal isn't going to play like a ton of minutes for this team, I can kind of just see whoever plays striker getting it. Plus, they're going to
Fair.
bring in someone else. So let's see. All right, Liverpool. Uh, yeah, that's a boring one, so we can skip.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
City, I think that's boring as well.
Yeah.
United, I don't know. I kind of just it's probably a bit too high to be honest for me with Cunha and Bemo. But this is almost me baking in like
The generosity.
the gift,
Yeah.
the season long gift. And
Yeah,
and do you think this is a season where Bruno is gonna like not play 90 minutes? No, I think he will, right? Because of no Europe.
that's what we discussed last week.
Yeah,
Because if there was some sort of competition, I definitely think Bruno would not have played 90 minutes anymore in the Premier League. But there is nothing else to play for, honestly.
yeah. I'm
So
probably a little too high here then on Cunha and Bemo.
uh, you know what, and I do understand why you are, because as a Bruno owner in the week where he gave the pen to Rashford against Everton, I do understand from that point of view that he has definitely given penalties to other players before.
Yeah,
And again, it's so weird that there is a circumstance where just like he gave it to Rashford for some reason, like to boost his confidence for him to score a goal, it could be the same case if, let's say, Mbuma doesn't score for a couple of games, or if Una doesn't score for
yeah.
a couple of
That's kind of
games.
what I was thinking. But yeah, I think I
Yeah,
still have it a little too high. Um, Either way, it
yeah,
is
fair,
as
fair
it
enough.
is. Newcastle, I think we have it very similar, and honestly, we're still expecting a lot to change with the
Yeah,
situation here. There is some sort of Gordon injury, but I don't think that changes
yeah,
too much given the present squad. Like he will be taking penalties if Isak is not around, and they don't sign
yeah.
another striker who can possibly take over him. Next team is Nottingham Forest. I think that's pretty boring as well.
Yeah.
I've just given Gibbs White a bit of priority here because he has taken the penalties when Wood's not off the pitch, and he's kind of
Hmm.
I've applied a small sort of main man tax here, but he's
That's
not
fair.
too much.
That's fair. Yeah.
Sunderland, we think Granit Xhaka's now on them. He I think wore the captaincy armband. Not that that
Yes.
means much, but took some set pieces today, and we saw Mayenda miss a penalty, so we're almost reorganizing the order based on that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Assuming he doesn't take.
I think Wilson Isidore missed two penalties in a game last season
Mm-hmm.
against Burnley, and Trafford saved both of them. So that, I think, made sure that at least he's never going to take a penalty for them again. So yeah,
Yeah. Another thing I think to mention too is some of these promoted teams is like I don't think the penalty taking is as important as people think. Maybe Leeds is a bit different because I think they're just a good team. But like with Sunderland and
mm,
Burnley, the reason why I didn't put a lot of thought into it is you're going to adjust the sliders and you'll realize actually there's very minimal impacts because there's just not a lot of
exactly.
implied penalties for these teams. And that's kind of how FPL works, right? It's like
Mm,
team goals for a season, penalty goals for a season. We don't know quite, I think, exactly how the science works, but I think generally speaking, I think if you plotted like penalty goals against Team XG um, for like the last 10 years of big five European leagues, I'd imagine it's pretty correlated. So yeah, I don't think we're expecting
I
much. You disagree?
no, no, I'm thinking maybe Team XG might not be the best way. Maybe we need to look at Team NPXG, because I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
Team
yeah,
XG,
yeah. Okay, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Of course,
does
of
include
course.
the XG of the
Because if
penalty, right?
yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
a bit
yeah,
circular, but yeah, I get what you mean.
yeah,
Um, let's see. So Spurs, I think we're pretty much aligned.
yeah,
Richarlison just mostly in the short term as well. So this would obviously be a decaying type percentage for us. Hard to
yeah,
sort of reflect
yeah.
that in this. And then with West Ham, I guess it's an interesting point, right? Because if we did briefly discuss how Fulkrug has a wonderful record, but I kind of just think that there's an established penalty taking order already, and
Exactly.
I kind of struggle to believe that Bowen would drop to third, even though Fulkrug has an impressive tally. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Same.
And also the logic being that yeah, like Bowen's always going to be on the pitch. So if we don't think he would defer to Fulkrug, then why even bother? And then with Wolves, I think this is probably our most controversial one. If I can be honest,
Yeah.
we are fully in Strand Larson camp. So maybe do you want to go first on that?
Yeah, of course. So I was looking through, and if McFred is here in the chat, he also posted about it. So he has taken three penalties, and all three of them have been in like under 21, some European qualifying competition.
Yep,
So he's never taken a senior penalty, and that is why I think maybe Arias deserves more pen share, because
100%.
again, yeah, he's taken penalties in his senior career, but there is also an established pecking order, and I think once has left, because Kuna's left, and then you
And they
look at
never took
who's
one last
there.
season.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then you look at who's there at the club now, and also Neves left, because they got penalties when Neves was at the club and he was taking them. And so there's really like such a huge gap between when we last saw Wolves take a penalty and the situation now, that I just think by default we have to go for whoever is the starting striker, and that is definitely him. I saw an interesting name crop up somewhere, Wang.
Yeah. Okay.
Wang Hee-chan, because again, I did not consider him because of minutes, but maybe we need to assign some penalty share to him from here because he has taken penalties in the past. So that is the only thing I forgot to include in this, which is to think about Wang Hee-chan.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good name actually thrown in there. I just tend
Yeah,
to think his minutes might not be amazing.
yeah,
But to
exactly.
be fair, even last season, I do remember he was actually featuring a bit more on the Cunha-less games. So
Hmm.
we could see a bit more of him this season potentially. But yeah, I just feel like since Pereira came into the team, I don't think I saw a lot of Huang. To be honest, I think he literally only started 2 Premier League games or 3 Premier League games under Pereira. So not
Pereira.
entirely promising, but yeah, definitely a name to
Okay,
consider.
Lars and Wobble are saying that Hee-chan is rumored to be leaving apparently,
Yeah,
which means yeah, yeah.
yeah, okay, which is sort of what I expected because I just think
Hmm.
he's yeah a
Yeah, the
very
minutes
bit
I
part
felt were
player.
too shaky. Yeah, very very shaky minutes. So I just thought, yeah, let's just confirm my bias and let me have Stan Larsen in peace.
Fair, yeah. Well, I've committed to it. I've
Oh
committed
yeah,
to it.
as have I.
Um, yeah. All right. Cool. Uh, let's just move on. So we got a graphic here, which is sort of looking at goalkeepers, and I think you probably wanted to discuss this a bit more, right? Because who popped out?
Yeah, exactly. Again, I think we're looking at Leeds goalkeeper. I think people were initially shouting out Darlow in the beginning, but obviously we have Perry now. And Perry and Petrovic, I think, is those are the two goalkeepers that I was looking at. Again, I think there is something to be said for sample sizes. Like someone like Allison has an insane sample size, and I don't think these two goalkeepers have anywhere near comparable sample sizes to him. But
Yeah.
it's just interesting to see, for example, even where Onana is, right? Because I just think he used to be such an incredibly high PSXG shot stopper at Inter and his first season at United, especially in the league, that I think even last season could not overshadow or pull him back into the negative PSXG delta. So it's just, I hope some version of that Onana shows up this season, unless we sign Donnarumma, which I don't know how certain that is. But also looking at this, I mean, someone like Areola, right? I feel like that's a little bit bolstered by his penalty saving record as well,
Hmm.
because PSXC does include that, obviously,
Yeah.
and that's the reason why I also went with like pen save percentages as sizes of these dots, and you can see that for some players it is definitely like, for example, Kelleher I think has 60% pen save record,
Oh
which
wow.
is
Okay.
yeah quite crazy if you think about it. But again, because it's like such a small sample size, right? How you need to save like I don't know, like if whatever criteria we apply to strikers, a similar criteria needs to be applied to goalkeepers as well. So
Yeah.
if you are not going to conclude much based on Visa scoring 12 out of 14 goals, penalties, then I think similar criteria should be applied to Keller as well. But yeah, in general, it just I just wanted to see Allison near the top, and I did see that. So when I do this for Champions League, I am sure Courtois will show up right next to Allison.
Maybe not, but do let me know.
Yes.
No, but to be fair, obviously, as you kind of mentioned with some of the other players, they've played for other leagues, and I think that does help. To be quite honest, like I remember because I have access to some of the data, but just looking at um this across Big Five Europe, and honestly, the amount of like league goalkeepers who crop up
Mm,
um is a bit bonkers to me.
mm,
So yeah, the fact that you have like an Allison and a Courtois at times on the top end of those kind of Big Five European lists is pretty impressive because you'd probably say a lot of the leagues are a lot of the other leagues are far a bit worse. Even if you're just sort of interpreting, I guess, like finishing skill and stuff.
Can I add something to this? So, firstly, Dubravka is in a good place, and I think he always has been
mm,
whenever he plays. But also, he did not start today. Weiss
yeah,
started and saved a penalty, so I don't know what's going on there. But maybe wait and watch. Was this the final friendly for Burnley, or are they? Do you know if they're playing more games?
I really don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I have
I I,
absolutely not
I think they
track of
have
friendlies.
no more. So that's it.
Yeah, that's gonna be. So we are depending on the press conference, right? So that's a little scary. Also, Angus Gunn got added to the game because Forest signed him. So yeah, seeing Ramsdale and Gunn next to each other makes you understand why Southampton kept getting relegated because it's basically those two. And Norwich, I think Angus Gunn also played for Norwich as well. So Bahindir, though, by the way, I mean, as a United fan, it's just if you see the gap between Bahindir and Onana, it's insane for shot stopping. But again, Bahindir has a smaller sample size, so hopefully he will improve as he gets older.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to call out here?
No, I mean, I have highlighted all the outliers. Like you can have a look at it on my timeline as well. I I just need to add Hermansen to this, but I'm not going to update it for Hermansen. I don't think Hermansen is going to stand out in any way, to be honest.
Really? Okay.
So, I mean,
All right.
yeah, he might stand out in the negative sense, but definitely not in
You
the
think so?
positive.
Okay. Well, he did save my
No,
Palmer
no,
penalty last
I was going
season.
to say, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. He saved my Palmer penalty as well, so that's I do have some grudge against him for that. Yeah.
Yeah. I did think he actually had some pretty good numbers. But also like yeah, I mean he hasn't had a very long career, and there's people
Mm.
here who clearly are in the positive that I think we don't rate whatsoever. Areola, for example, being that as you mentioned at the
Yeah,
start,
that's what I said.
or
Like,
or
it's just,
or or Pope even, right? For
just
probably differing reasons, but yeah. All right. So you have another chart as well prepared for us. This is a bit impromptu. Do you want to just quickly walk us through what exactly this is? So F denoted by blue, midfielders denoted by orange, and then defenders denoted by the white/gray line.
yeah. So last week when we were talking about if you can approximate um, clearances, blocks, recoveries, interceptions, tackles, so defensive contributions using a normal distribution, right? And FPL Broccoli commented on our video. He's even talked about it on the timeline that he thinks percentage of threshold hit is a better uh, sort of metric to
Mm-hmm.
gauge that instead of looking at just the average numbers per 90 and then looking at a normal distribution. So what I did was I downloaded data from 2020-2021 season up all the way up to 24-25 for all player events in that duration in the Premier League. I filtered for 90 minutes and then I looked at each individual event and then basically plotted a frequency plot of how many times a player hit what target. And so obviously for defenders, it's a lesser target, but also you don't count recoveries. So that's why you see that the peak for defenders is uh, earlier than midfielder, but also I mean forwards are forwards are going to get the least number of defensive contributions anyway. So you can see that it peaks pretty early and then sort of flattens out. The most interesting thing was when I did this analysis only for one season, which was 2024-25, the midfield distribution was not actually did not resemble a normal distribution. It more resembled a bimodal distribution. Now the problem with bimodal distribution is you cannot use a normal distribution to approximate that because there are two clear distinct peaks. So even in this one, if I had less data, you can see, like for example, if it had not gone past what is it for 5 recoveries, if it had like dipped below and then gone back up, that would mean that there are two distinct peaks. And one hypothesis I had for that was you because midfielders are a mix of defensive midfielders and attacking midfielders.
Mm-hmm.
It's those two sort of distributions are interfering, and so you get a pattern where it's just the interference
Yep.
you can see from both distributions. And so, without getting too much more technical, this looks at least a lot more reasonably like a normal distribution, even though I feel like it's still a little wonky.
Yeah.
For defenders and forwards, you can definitely say that this resembles a normal distribution. So I would say that based off this, would be comfortable using just normal distribution to approximate the probability of a player hitting the defensive contribution target based on their career rate.
All
So
right.
that's the conclusion from this.
Yeah. And awesome. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So we wanted to sort of revisit finishing skill here. Um,
Yes.
so is there anything we wanted to sort of refresh on? Some new players maybe being added or
Yes. So I have added everyone, including Sesko, in anticipation of his arrival at United.
mm-hmm.
Uh, you yeah, Sesko is just below Piro. If people can see on the graph, is around zero point 0.4 NPXG per 90 and 1.1. He's slightly less than 1.1. It's like 1.08 or 1.09, I think, for finishing. So that was one important addition. I think the other one was Guisand, who arrived at Aston Villa. He's bang on the finishing finishing skill equal to one line,
Yeah.
and I think he's around 0.32, 0.33 in PXG per 90.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two big additions. Other than that, I mean, I probably need to get rid of Son now, and that would rescale the
True.
graph
Yeah.
because obviously
Yeah.
we'll now have Foden at the top.
Don't you mean Sancho? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at Sancho, but again, he's probably going to leave, so
Yeah, I
we
know.
might be looking at Foden.
I,
Yeah,
I'm just playing.
I know, I
Um
know.
yeah. All right. I guess Bamford could leave as well. So yeah, some serious rescaling
Ooh,
could happen.
yes, absolutely. I also added Ugo Chukwu, by the way, because I think Ugo Chukwu also joined, or rather, FPL added him to the game 2 days ago.
Yeah,
So,
signed for
but yeah,
Burnley.
again, yeah, Burnley. It's pretty irrelevant for us.
Fair. All right. The next one is kind of revisiting our visual. I think of. So do you want to kind of explain what you've done in terms of tweaking the charts, like what you've done now with the is it the XA kind of y-axis?
Yes, yes, yeah. So two things. Firstly, because I think last week we did talk about this a lot, uh, creative output versus defensive contributions for different positions, and I also posted these graphs a bunch of times with like updates and everything. But two key things that have happened. One is I went through my database and I realized that I had a lot of duplicate entries for some reason. So maybe there were some seasons that were getting more weighted compared to other seasons. So I removed all duplicate seasons for all players. And then the second more important thing was I was not considering expected assists. So I was considering expected assisted goals, but not expected assists. So I think expected assist is more pass oriented, or it judges more of the quality of pass rather than the end goal or the end. Okay, that's I did not mean to say that, but yeah, it's the end goal basically. So XAG is only looking at what happened or what was the quality of the shot. So the pass is more, it's less relevant than it is for XA. So I felt like just taking an average of them would help better understand creative output of players. And the biggest, and we'll get to that later, but there are a couple of players who suffered a lot as a result of that. And even someone like Bruno, and who was it? I was looking at someone else, I forgot. There are a couple of players who have definitely been downgraded as a result, but I mean, it's still like he's still pretty much near the top. I think Gakpo got a big boost because Gakpo has better XA than he has XAG, and so he definitely got a boost out of that. So yeah, it's just I think I've highlighted more players just for people to see. Like for example, Xhaka, Henderson, Anderson. I think even Anderson you can see is like still pretty showing up pretty decent. So Stack, I was asking Bruno about Stack, right? So Stack is the one that actually stood out to me, who's getting almost 14 defensive contributions per 90 in his career, and he scored a goal today in the friendly, and he's taking corners and set pieces as well. So I don't know if his minutes are good, then maybe he's also up for consideration.
Yeah, sure. Um, and then here we have the forwards. Although once again, we just maintain that yeah, forwards aren't very good at
Yeah,
uh
exactly.
DEFCON. So we can probably also skip ahead towards looking at our drafts. So Given all that we've said so far, we haven't really talked too much about teams, and I think across the board, a lot of people have thematically similar teams. Yours is probably the most different, I would say, because I think, and I'll talk about that when I get to my draft, but I can see a lot of weighing up of, let's say, some like the general argument being Watkins versus Wirtz, whereas you've kind of gone for what seems like a bit more of a bench boost friendly team, right?
Yes, yeah. So I'm trying to see. So the differences in our teams are minimal right now, and I think it might be subject to a few minutes being tweaked before the deadline. But when as soon as Dubravka dropped, obviously you had to go with him. And then secondly, if I want to bench boost too, I can. But I am cognizant of the fact that Spurs play Man City, so that's that EV. But I mean, EV takes care of that, so I'm not like too worried about that. Also, because no Solanke, no Romero, so it automatically sort of balances the team out. And again, I have the choice to not bench boost if one of my players gets injured, so there's always that. I just feel like it's a very low risk move to cover it, but at the same time, I feel like I will definitely be giving up some EV because I'm trying to cover more scenarios. I feel like if you want to be completely agnostic about chip strategy like you have been, that is a better way to approach expected value from a season long perspective rather than trying to cover as many scenarios as you can. In previous seasons, uh, I've tried to sort of cover multiple scenarios by having zero point 0.5 in the bank, 1 million in the bank, just so that I can pivot to, let's say, I don't know, this season's comparison would be Fernandes to Palmer or something like that, maybe like
Mm-hmm.
1.5. So I don't want to do that, and then the only way to not do that is to commit to not bench boosting early on. And so if I do that, then I think my team would be very similar to yours, where I think Words does become a much better option because his game week one expected value is much higher than what I'm getting right now, and NDI as well, right? The interlinks are weak, but they're there. And so if I feel like there's a chance that he's going to get less minutes or he's not going to start or something like that, I'm just going to pivot to Enzo, by the way. So I review actually suggested Enzo to me and not NGI because NGI is running on like 77 minutes right now, which to be fair is not that far away
Yeah,
from
it could
his
be
average
low
minutes.
even. Yeah.
It could even be lower than that. You're absolutely right. So there's something to be said about if I were to start the season with Palmer and Enzo, but again, the fixtures are great, right? So um, I guess the only consideration is someone like Pong. Like if he were to be like a fixture in that team, then if I were to go for him, then I need to sell one of the Chelsea players. So this I'm just thinking around all of these things, given that Cole will out for a long time. So other than that, Evan Nilsson is the other one. So Evan Nilsson, like you pointed out about words, the other one is Evan Nilsson. Because if you're not bench boosting too, I'm pretty sure Evan Nilsson is less likely to show up if you solve for, let's say, 10 game weeks, 12, 14 game weeks, whatever. But because I am playing bench boost 2 year, I'm trying to, yeah. So you replace Evan Nilsson with just a 4.5 million striker if you're not bench boosting, which is what you have. So uh, other than that, I think it's pretty self-evident. Like some of the picks, like it's just the price point and the expected value is just too good to avoid. So this is probably close to. I feel a little comfortable now, but again, maybe Virgil is too much. Like I'm really struggling to spend that much money on him. Uh, but again, if we are going to hit defensive contribution thresholds more often than not, then I think that's definitely worth considering.
Yeah. And I think like what people were sort of mentioning that most of the games where Liverpool were sort of doing good CBIT versus was just a
Mm,
lot of the tougher games
yeah,
that they had.
yeah,
Um which actually Liverpool do have at the start of the season anyways.
yeah, I do.
Um
Yeah.
yeah. So my draft is not too different as you mentioned. Like we have very similar picks.
Mm,
And to be honest, it's like if I dropped Watkins, my draft would look a lot similar to yours.
yes.
But I'm currently on clearly like a no bench boost type of structure. I have the same defense, right? And then in the midfield, I have Jorginho Rutter, and I've got Watkins, of course, in this case. I I don't really know what to say. Like I think Watkins still feels like a bit of a no-brainer type pick. Like you could say Gessan will take some of the minutes away from him. You can say he's not on pens, but there's also a world where both things are untrue, and I think that's probably the world we're still living in.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so I really do like Watkins at the start, and there's other picks like I think so. We like a lot of the 6.0 to 6.5 picks, maybe even at 5.5, right, with Anderson here, and I just mean across the board within the attack. So like Thiago at 6, I really like. So does Jorginho here. Even Paqueta, for example. Tillemans, who I'm not super confident on because I just don't think he's on
Mm.
pens. Could be wrong, right? But I probably feel like I'm a little bit more confident on going for a Watkins over, I don't know, let's say a Saka or a Gakpo or a Wirtz at this moment in time. So I'm spending a bit more money in that position. And then Jorginho is kind of, I just like a punt, to be honest, in my FPL teams.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and you know, at that, I always leave room for one. I think he could be pretty slept on. I think maybe, especially if he's going to play a mixture of striker/10, I just can't see how it could really go so wrong. Brighton are a team that a lot of us who kind of subscribe to team strength models really think will have a huge season
Mm.
and will probably be a very consistent, solid attack. So I'd like a piece of that pie through Jorginho. And that's pretty much my draft. Pretty boring. At 4.5, I've also sort of been considering maybe if I just go Krupi Jr.
I have seen him in some drafts, and
Yeah.
maybe if Dango, he's placed for Bournemouth, right? Or am I thinking of someone else?
Yeah, yeah. Dango's
Yeah,
kind of maybe going to leave
yeah,
towards a
yeah.
Brentford.
So if Dango leaves, then I think there is definitely scope for that. You know what my biggest takeaway was from last season is whichever 4.5 you're getting, there is no floor for price drops now, which was abundantly clear with some of the picks like Keller, who I owned. Like he fell from like 4.9 to 4.
Mm-hmm.
And again, okay,
4.
he went
Okay.
up
Wow.
from
Yeah.
4.5 to 4.9, but
Yeah.
the thing is, once he gets back to 4.5, let's say 4.4, his ownership at that point was extremely low.
Yeah.
And in
Minimal.
previous seasons, we've seen that it definitely like impacts that because obviously the volume of transfers is lower because far fewer teams own him.
Yep.
But there was definitely no floor. It just kept dropping and dropping, and that is my biggest worry with these players. I would just hope that whichever player I go with, if I were to go for a 4.5 million striker, would start. That's I
Yeah.
think that's the only requirement, or at least play some minutes, like
Well, yeah,
60
equally, I
minutes,
guess it's like
whatever it is.
as long as no 4.5 options are good, you're most likely going to be in the clear, right? Because,
Fair.
yeah,
Yes,
are
that is a
people,
good point.
yeah,
Actually. They'll just keep them in the team. If
yep,
there is no player who stands out, then there is no reason to make a transfer. So that's a great point. Yes. Yeah.
yeah. And so it's like, there's a lot of popular picks here. Like, I feel like there's so much convergence. You know, we don't have Tarkovsky here, but him, Murillo, and Virgil are like the most popular defenders by
Oh yeah.
far. I
Oh
feel like
yeah.
from an engaged bunch.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I guess if one of them flops per se, like you could see price drops, but really like these defenders are kind of foolproof, so I don't really foresee that. um I just find, yeah, the interesting sort of shifts between, you know, some people aren't fans of Bruno, and that's fine. They have a little bit more of a well-rounded team, maybe outside of Bruno. Maybe a little bit more money is being spent in the forward positions, whereas I think us, from a more of a sort of modeling perspective, from people who use solvers, generally I think we're pretty low on the forwards. It's only in this specific case here where Watkins feels like a bit of a no-brainer, and maybe we're, I guess, somewhat allergic to going 4-5-1, um,
Yeah.
which I think is
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
viable. Like I've been getting some drafts which are like 4-4-2 variants, which are basically a mixture between rotating 3-5-2 and 4-4-2 in any weeks. Like that would have, for example, like a Munoz on the bench, that kind of thing. But I also just think, yeah, Anderson's just that good. Like, do I care so much? So I'm kind of on a structure like this, and I still have Sanchez, right? I can foresee some people going Raya, some people maybe even just going potentially Kelleher, but he's not even kind of ready to start the season, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. Shall we jump
Yeah,
into?
maybe Kelleher was like the one thing that we could have banked on, but again, because
Mm.
he didn't even start a single game.
Well, yeah, actually,
Yeah,
on that subject, like it seems like his expected points and reviews like pretty inferior compared to like let's say Solio. Do you think
yes,
this?
yeah.
Do you think there's anything on that you'd like to touch on, or any?
I just think maybe it's a reflection of the team or the team defensive strength,
Mm-hmm.
which has been decimated. Let's just be honest about it, and it's also about, I think when it comes to defense, just similar to attack, it's about chemistry as well, right? So it's like a completely not a completely new, because I think Collins and Vandenberg have definitely played together, but it's just the even like someone like Mbumo, right, who used to help out a lot in defense,
Yep.
and someone like Visa, because both of them are not at the club anymore. I just think it's going to be a completely different dynamic when they defend, and maybe it's better to be more skeptical about it, given the fact that it's pretty unknown, than to assume some priors and then just extrapolate based on that. So I would side with reviews approach on this, which is be skeptical about it as long as you don't have a strong enough signal. But again, markets don't work like that. So if you want to go by markets, then definitely I think Keller will show up pretty strongly because of his price point as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think I was speaking to Levenify and we can no longer see kind of like I think markets for team goals and team goals conceded. Uh
Oh, okay.
so it's getting a little bit tougher to see kind of like where the markets are in terms of exactly the split between attack and defense.
See,
Um
okay. I'm trying to see because I thought they usually have those things, right? I'm so
yeah,
surprised.
I think you still have like
Oh, okay.
projected points, but not necessarily maybe goals conceded, but I could be wrong.
Oh, no, you're right. You're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's now interesting because obviously we've got team check models that give us the split of the two, but we don't necessarily have that corresponding check or sense check in the market. So
Correct. Correct.
an interesting change, I think. But you know that is our drafts right now. Clearly, they're just drafts. They can change. I'm happy to sort of discuss the Jorginho pick. I just think that yeah, like this is a guy who was signed for a record fee, I believe.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, who can play three different positions for this team, who, anyways, last season was a starter pretty much the whole season until his injury. And I think is pretty much impervious to rotation on that basis. Is he prone to getting subbed off maybe early? Like once again, yes. But I also will remind people that he played 3,700 minutes in the championship 2 seasons ago. So he's
Hmm.
clearly capable of doing more. And you have João Pedro leaving the team now and some other players coming back, like, O'Reilly coming back from injury and obviously some other sort of forward signings. But yeah, I tend to think he's only going to play more minutes this year. But I'm happy to be wrong on that. I just think what we've probably seen is I think Ursula has been pretty comfortable benching Welbeck when he wants to. So there's probably going to be more of an opening for striker share here, and that makes me feel quite comfortable about Rutter as a pick, whether he's a striker or a 10. Um, and that's why I like him a lot.
By the way, I think we missed on the defender graph because I just wanted to show people that Piro is no longer not Piro. My bad. Who's the Leeds defender who was
Oh,
standing out?
was it Schmidt? Yeah, let's
Schmidt,
just
Schmidt. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know if you have because someone was saying like there's some chat about Murillo and Nico Williams and Milenkovic.
that's a good point. Yeah, we can definitely
Yeah.
add that in. Yeah, so here's our defenders, right? And
Yeah.
we have Nico Williams, we have Murillo, and there is a
Yeah.
sizable gap, right?
Yes. And as you can see now, Diouf is the number one pick on this by far.
The fraudster. Yeah. But
Yeah.
Tarkovsky and Murillo, like it's actually kind of crazy where they're at. Like
Yeah.
it that just shows how individually good they are at
Yeah. Yeah,
at this.
absolutely. And I had published the other thing we showed last week, which showed like all of Murillo's games from last season, and you can again clearly see that he's more of likely than not going to hit the targets. There's some
Yeah.
games which I think are mostly away games where they changed their style of playing and just played on the counter and defended deep, so he didn't get much of a chance to recover balls. So rather, everything else apart from recoveries. So maybe there will be some games, but yeah, I mean it's just the numbers are backing him up, absolutely.
Yeah. That's impressive.
Yeah,
But
even
yeah,
though
like
I also highlighted Munoz, right, on purpose because again, as soon as I don't know, do you think reviews rating of Munoz from an expected value perspective has shifted or not? Because I feel like I don't pay as close attention as you do. So
mhm.
if you compare it to last season, do you feel like there's been a change or do you think it's still, I don't want to say underrated, but it feels underrated to an
Yeah.
extent.
It's a good point because I was speaking to like Cesar about this, and he kind of made a good point, which was like your Murillos and Tarkovskis of the world probably got a bigger boost anyways than Munoz. Because when you see that gap between that sort of 8 and the 10, that's probably like, as we
Mm,
said, 20-30% of games.
correct.
So I feel like Munoz might also just be hurt by how we capture how bad Crystal Palace's opening games are, and then also how bad they are as a team. So I actually think Munoz is fine. He's still like a top 10 defender from what I can see. And I think a lot of the sort of new names being here, maybe like on that sort of list would be a Kukureya playing season long under a better team. And then you have some Arsenal defenders maybe, and the like. So
Fran,
I
I'm getting a lot of reverb from you. I don't know
oh
if it's on my end or your end.
uh let's see what the chat says. Maybe if chat can let. Are you playing the
Yeah.
stream in the background potentially, or no
No,
clue?
no, that kind of reverb. It's just like a static noise every time you speak
Oh
through
right.
the. It just
Okay.
started after you uploaded this, so I don't know how that could have impacted that at all. Like, what has that anything to do with that?
Yeah.
Uh,
Couldn't tell you, but
yeah, let me change my audio source and
hopefully
test
stream's
it out.
fine.
Yeah,
Otherwise, I think we can probably segue to the Q&A in the meantime, and I can probably respond to a couple questions.
yeah.
Yep. All right. So starting from the top of the chat, thank you, Adam. I really appreciate the support. Lars, yep, we did talk about the pen share. Just a factor of minutes and things like that as to why we go above 100 for some certain teams. Um, Victor, thank you so much for watching on the Saturday evening. JH, good evening to you as well. Lars, yep, I agree with you once again on Wisa probably joining Newcastle. I mean,
Mm.
uh, most camps
Well,
seem to.
well,
Well,
well. This is
well,
Newcastle,
no,
so you know.
but don't you think they'll sign two players? Is kind of the point. Like if they were to sign someone else or keep Isak, do they not still sign Wisa in this context with Wilson leaving the club?
No, no, they do. I just want to shit on them. Excuse the language.
Okay, all right, yeah, but like, I mean, come on now. All right, yeah, fair enough. Sanji's got a team. I think just off the cuff with the team, I don't really have too many thoughts on it. I don't love Kudush as a pick. And to be fair, we can discuss Kudush briefly.
Mm.
I'm just not seeing it really. Like, I think the fixtures actually are pretty poor
Yes.
for Tottenham. And then at the same time, he's not going to be a 90-minute player. I don't see it.
Also, okay, I maybe I should have thought of this, but with Solanke not in the team, could
Mm-hmm.
we expect him to also play up
Yeah,
front? Maybe.
okay.
I mean,
But it's Richarlison's right there, right?
I know, but yeah, okay, fair. Also, it's easier to do that, right? You can put Richarlison up top and have him on the left wing. So yeah, makes sense. Because I was
And
thinking like for West Ham, there was a period where he was playing center forward, or
hmm.
at least on paper he was, but then he used to drop back and Bowen used to make runs beyond him.
I feel like that's exactly what happened. And kind of my overall concern with Kudush is like he can still lose his spot because there's much more depth than there are in some of the other
Mm.
teams.
Yeah.
So I feel like being overly optimistic about his minutes can work, but it doesn't really suggest that he's like a blindingly obvious pick, if that makes sense. Like he obviously has a better game week 1 than most of the other 6.5 midfielders. I think that's like indistinguishable, but that's kind of my overall concern with Kudish. And then on top of that, he's not actually really good at DEFCON at all, right? So I think when we rate a lot of the midfielders, there's a bit of pricing that in terms of how we rate them. Like NJ, that's a lot. Like some of his rating now is a bit of implied DEFCON. Same with Bruno. Like you're adding 0.6, 0.5 maybe points per game to certain midfielders in open play that we now rate a lot more than we used to. And I'm speaking specifically to Bruno and Jai here. And why we kind of fancy that, especially since these are players who are more likely to be nailed and to stay nailed, as opposed to maybe start the season off as the starting right winger, which I think Kudus is definitely, but can still be, for example, losing minutes. Yeah.
The doc was saying, where's Pac-Man? And I think, as we already briefly mentioned him, right? Paqueta is probably the alternative to the players we have in our teams right now.
Yeah.
And I just don't know. I've seen his minutes throughout his West Ham career, and I know there was the whole betting thing, and maybe that was influencing
Yeah.
something, where. But I don't know why that would influence him getting subbed in a game. That
Yeah.
could excuse him just not
I
playing
agree.
games.
He's a midfielder
So
at the end of the days, right? And they have a lot of midfielders actually in that
yeah,
team. Like there's going to be some
exactly.
setups where maybe they defend a game and he doesn't need to
Yep.
stay on the pitch. He'll
Yep.
probably stay on if they need to score. But I can actually still see him getting subbed off if, like, in the very similar context, if you wanted to throw a Fellaini or a Socek like in a game and you wanted to win it in a
Oh yeah,
different sort of way, like
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Edson Alvarez is still at the club, right? So you have him, you have Guido Rodriguez, you have Vucek, you have James Ward-Prowse. There's so many players who play in midfield. So you're absolutely right. I just don't see the appeal. Of course, he has penalties, which is the appeal, but without the sort of not guarantee, but like you said, like without the point 0.5 points his games of points per game defensive contributions baked in, I don't know. I'm just struggling to see the appeal.
yeah. And like keep in mind, of course, like it's a lot of things. Like you're pretty much valuing his open play thread,
Mm.
and some of the other mids kind of have the intangibles.
Yep.
But I don't think he's an awful pick. It's just it.
Oh no, no.
There's that for me. There's some risk towards the minutes, and then I don't quite see if the upside is that amazing. Is kind of my
Correct.
overarching point.
Correct.
A bit of chat on Huang, which I think we discussed live.
Yep.
Alex B saying bench boost 11 is being undercooked. I mean, I don't really know what to say on that because it's so far into the future. If you were to wildcard before it, I can kind of see the vision for it a bit more. Yeah, I don't really know what to say.
I think Alex commented on our previous episode as well, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, I did not get a chance to run like bench boost 11 because it's so far in the future that I just don't see the point in doing it right now. Like there's so many things, so many decisions that need to be made. Most probably you will wildcard around that, so maybe wildcard 10, maybe wildcard 13. I think he had a wildcard 13 in what he
Mm-hmm.
was proposing.
Okay.
So again, it's like so far out that, and again, if you wildcard 13, it's like 3-4 weeks before you get five free transfers, right? For
Yeah.
AFCON. So I don't know. I think it's better to be just bench chip agnostic than to plan for bench boost 11 out from now on. But obviously, you can have a couple of players, like for example, like similar price points, similar expected value. You can definitely choose between players to make sure that you have a better bench towards bench boost 11. But other than that, I'm not going to put any stock into that.
Yeah, I'm looking into it because it's a week of City versus Liverpool, but
Mm.
I'm trying to think about like who actually would sit on your bench. Like presumably, if we thought Dubravka was live, it's I guess nice that they have West Ham away. Um, but I'm also trying to think if like all the other teams that we're invested into actually have good games themselves. Like Forest have Leeds, Everton have Fulham, so I think that's nice. Uh, Liverpool have a tough game as I said, so that kind of hurts a few teams. who are probably overinvested in Liverpool. Chelsea across the board have a good game. Villa have an okay game. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not seeing something cry out
That
to
stands
me.
out, right? That's
Maybe
yeah, exactly.
Crystal Palace have a good game, and they're one of the teams that a lot of people have on their bench provisionally. I guess it's because there's a lot of balance games, and that might be driving the logic of it. But it's still one of those things where I guess if you're planning for a specific bench boost so far in the future, you must have a specific bench in mind, and that
Correct.
all I guess I'm saying is your bench will probably change quite a fair bit when you
Exactly.
get there. So yeah, I don't know if
I'm just trying to load a review. By the way, I don't know. I mean, I appreciate everything what review's done, but the team takes so much longer to load nowadays. I don't know what the problem is. Maybe it's on my end, but
it could be.
just takes a lot more time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so the bench I am getting right now from yeah, okay, never mind. I just selected the team. I didn't solve for future weeks, so yeah, I don't have a bench that I can share.
very nice. No, I'm kidding. Uh, I mean, like, I'm still thinking about. 'Cause, like, it's the 4.5 for it as well, right? Like,
Yeah.
is that player even going to be alive? That sort of thing. So I just think planning so far ahead, you must have maybe even three, and then I don't know if you're actually squeezing enough value because a lot of the people who actually have a bit more of a well-rounded draft like you, like in the with the Evan Nilsson piece there, are I still feel like most likely get a wild card a little bit early off of that because
Mm,
it's maybe like unsustainable or suddenly like we identify so many cheap picks that you feel like you want to reorientate your draft is kind of my
mm,
thought. I could be wrong
correct.
on that, but yeah. Forrest not scoring goals, what is an avoid? Yeah, but that they've always done that, right? So not I'm not even saying that as a pro Wood argument, but I think Wood is solid to start the season with. The fixtures just
Yeah,
are
it's
that
again
good,
because of and also because of lack of options, right? If we had
yeah,
alternatives, then no one would have even considered him. But again, we have
probably,
so
yeah.
few options that he automatically comes into the mix.
Adam Forrest not sorry, did you read that one? Murillo over Williams worth the extra. I do think so, because especially if like they sign Leaf Davis, I do think that kind of knocks like takes a few of his minutes away. I don't actually think Williams is actually that affected by minutes because he should start the season as right back and should keep his spot as a left back, like no matter what. It's just about
Hmm,
okay, do you suddenly do if Leaf Davis is actually signed, do you do like an 80-minute sub for a fullback and that does take away a little bit from the DEFCON aspect of Nico Williams. So it would
it
only
does, yeah.
really just add more value to Murillo. But I think, like, to the question of is Murillo worth the extra 0.5? Like, I think yes. I think that's the answer because it gives you that certainty and that comfort. And I don't think
Yeah.
Nico Williams can quite give that or supersede expectations on that front.
Hmm.
Milenkovic over Murillo, Adam says. I just think he scored, what, 5 goals last season? Is it sustainable? I don't really think so. So I just feel like DEFCON just gives you that guarantee a bit better.
Yeah.
Victor saying thoughts about Haaland over Salah. Uh, oh, he saw
So
someone that
this
reported
is
that.
actually interesting because when
See,
I did my solve for bench boost two, not for bench
okay,
boost two, without any chips, the second highest expected value draft did have Reinders in it
okay. Did it
in
have
place
Haaland in it?
of no,
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought.
just Reinders.
Yeah.
So Reinders is a fair shout because again, Rodri's injury means that he's going to be reintegrated slower than what I thought he would be, like how he
You know,
would be.
Reinders is not starting today, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't know which
It's
city.
not. It's not a serious
Uh,
lineup. It's not a serious line. I can say that, but I just feel like that already shows you exactly what we're looking at, right?
Fair
Yeah.
enough. That is a perfectly valid point because I was also thinking. So 11, if I was asking me if we should start with Trafford in other fantasy games,
Yeah.
and I can't do that, bro. I just
That's-
I can't. Sorry.
I basically just said if you look at this Man City lineup today, there's actually 8 players in my opinion who don't start in Game Week 1. Um,
Okay.
and like that's not a great sign for me. Holland did score, by the way. But I look at Lewis, Stones, Kushinov, and I think they could all not start. I
Yeah.
look at O'Reilly and Nico, and I think they could both not start. I look at Bob, and I think he could not start, and the same with Cherky. That's obscene.
Turkey. I think maybe Turkey is the only one I would say is
You think?
perhaps
Yeah.
by default he would start.
You think so?
But
Because
then
like if you have Doku starting, that pushes Marmoush back inside, and then Savio can play over Bob,
you
and
know,
then
I get what you're saying, and this is what we discussed last week, right? That
yeah.
Savinho and Doku could play on either wings, and there's no room for
Well,
Marmoush.
I actually think he's given up on Doku on the right, but he's given up on a couple of people on the right. I think for fair reason. Like he's got
Yeah,
Bob, Savio, and Bernardo there basically,
yeah.
and Turkey actually. Sorry, Turkey as well. But goodness, that's that's crazy.
Wait, I mean, technically, Foden last season was also one of
Yeah,
those, right?
sorry, I actually forgot Foden
So
was a football
yeah,
player. Um,
exactly.
yeah,
So there's like too much. I just don't want to
but
go for any
yeah,
of them.
to be fair, so is Foden. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of like think Reinders is okay, but it's also like what are you looking for? Like, are you looking for a DefCon grabbing city mid? Because yeah, the more you kind of play deeper, the worse you are. And he's clearly profiled as a bit of a six, maybe
Oh,
on
yeah, exactly. I
yeah.
saw someone mention that he scored a lot of goals for Milan, but his role
He
was
scored
completely different
yeah,
for AC Milan.
exactly. He
Yeah.
just plays a completely different role, and
He
that's
scored,
kind
I
of
think, 15
why
goals. Yeah, last season.
I'm not in love with him as a pick.
Mm,
I think he scored yeah, and he
mm.
scored like 10 goals, and like the XG is just way too high for what I would
Yeah,
expect for him to do for the City team.
yeah.
So yeah, that's fun. Uh, is there a reason why
Uh,
Rutter? I think yeah, we
yeah.
did talk about
I
that.
could say
Welbeck
that. Yes.
being old kind of helps.
Yep. Yep.
Do I buy Pedro's minutes being as suspect as Monzo suggests? Oh, it's an interesting question. I would say yes. Where would you land on that?
On what? Sorry.
João Pedro's minutes. I think another point to mention on João Pedro too is like even if he plays like 75 to 80 minutes, I don't think that suddenly makes him like an astoundingly good pick. Maybe that's a hot take, but
Uh,
yeah.
okay, so if he does play 70 to 80 minutes, I am willing to wager that he misses out on starting one of let's say 1 out of 4 games or something like that. Because I just feel like there's too much competition and they can easily build a good squad instead of just playing the starting 11 every single game because of Champions League now. I think last season was completely different because that tournament was like almost a guarantee for them to win. They were by and far the best team in the Conference League. So this is not going to be like that. They will try to play balanced teams in as many game weeks as they can, and that just means I think someone like Delap will get a run out. I mean, let's assume that Nicolas Jackson is leaving, which I think he probably will. I
Yep.
still think there's a lot of depth there, and unless there's like an injury, I just don't want to commit to João Pedro.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I can
Doc,
kind of
Doc's given a bunch of things for Paqueta. Which, yeah, I mean, he does say that the main thing, which is valid feedback, but also the elements, but actually on penalties. So,
no, I agree with that.
if, yeah,
But
yeah,
obviously, you're taking
I
away
agree.
expected clean sheet points that Tillmans has, and
Ooh, fair.
um,
Mm,
um, like Tillemans is more of a 90-minute player than Paqueta is as
yeah,
well.
yeah, for sure,
Um,
for sure.
yeah, I think my concern is he should start most games and he should start every game. But yeah, he's still someone who's more prone to being subbed at 75 than like someone like Tillemans' profile is. So
Yes,
that's
yeah.
kind of what I'm concerned with. Otherwise, I think like he's a good pick. He's a good pick, and I would never dissuade anyone from going for Paqueta. I think even his pen share on review is a little low, as I mentioned.
Mm.
Um, I just want more, and maybe Jorginho can give me nothing, but maybe he can give me more. Um, let's see. Um, Suggestions to
Uh,
replace Kudush? I think NJ Matoma are probably the two best picks.
I mean, you have to say Router, right?
I have to say Ruter, yeah, but at
Yeah,
6.5, I guess.
yeah.
Even I don't know if I can really, in good
I mean, India is
conscience.
also 6.5. So,
I'd probably still, honestly, I'd still pick Sar over him.
I would pick neither, but yeah, that's
Yeah,
His peak
I
year,
would pick Niter,
yeah, yeah.
sure. But to be honest, like Sar, I feel like people are also like sleeping on how good he is still. Like if you actually up his minutes to like 90, which he kind of is a 90-minute player for pass, he's pretty close to all the picks we've discussed. You know, he's not too far off.
No, but
Um,
I feel like those 90 minutes are more susceptible to change than maybe some of the other
really,
players.
they have like no depth right now.
No, no, no. In the future, like some
Yeah,
point in the future, in the near future, I have to specify because if it is far off in the future, then we don't care. So you'll find a free transfer.
maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like he had a really good season when it comes to minutes.
Though that is fair. I'm just saying. I don't know. Maybe that's worth considering more.
Fair. Could be some disagreement there. I think Rice is a terrible pick, and I'll probably
Oh
stand
yeah,
by
for
that
sure.
take.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Uh oh, Dewsbury Hall. What do you think about him? Maybe
I think Ollie has a lot more opinions. He's an Everton fan than I do.
you know the problem
I
with
Yeah.
Dewsbury Hall is that I think he just still his kind of like his actual EV per game just isn't good enough for you to suddenly say, oh, I'd actually rather start him
Than
than
MJ.
but no, like anyone really, I guess.
Okay,
But
fair. Yeah, yeah.
it's tricky because obviously like yeah, his minutes would be good if he plays a bit of center mid too, like so he could probably play multiple roles. But then maybe also like we kind of just need to wait for some models to adjust in terms of share, like set piece share and things like that. But I do remember like having a look at his like EV and it just wasn't pretty. Um, because there's a point where like if you're a 4.5 or a 5 mid, right, that you actually don't bring any value to the game whatsoever. Um, at your price point.
Mhm.
So he's like still quite a bit below a lot of picks that I would like go for that are actually just like I guess the threshold that I'm sort of talking about is if you play the minutes that we expect you to play, do you have more EV per week than a Caicedo? Is kind of what my threshold would be. Because I feel like Caicedo's like on the verge of being actually a decent pick.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
saying last week, that he is the poster boy for defensive recovery. So if you talk about expected value for any of these players who previously would not have been on our radars and are now on our radars, I think they have to be at least comparable to Caicedo or better. I mean, obviously. So otherwise, you'd just go for Caicedo, right? So
yeah.
there's definitely that consideration. I agree with you.
And then you just use the 0. Like because I think that the main thing is what do you it's not even about using that 0.5, it's just do you actually want to field someone who averages like pretty subpar EV per game, but I could
Mhm.
be wrong on that, right? So like I think what people kind of might have missed in terms of like an Elliot Anderson, what he does in our draws is actually in a lot of cases you're now seeing more solves where it covers up some of the bad Elliot Anderson games, like for example when he faces versus
Exactly.
Arsenal, there's a bit more
Yeah.
rotation around that. uh
Yeah.
it's a bit different, right?
Also,
So
bad striker games, right? So, like you said, if you have someone like KDH and Anderson in your team, what what is going to be your plan? I'm assuming it's going to be either or. But let's say you are one of
true.
those who wants to go for Watkins and then beef up your defense as well. So you want to go for both. I think that's just going to be leaving you with at least one player who has a bad fixture, and then the other player has subpar expected value anyway. So I just don't see how it's going to work. With Anderson, I just see him covering all the bad forward games, which is perfect when it comes to expected value.
Fair. um
Oh, for is asking, is Dorgu nailed to start? In the beginning, yes. I've discussed this with a lot of United fans, and I think the only concern is Diogo Dallo a valid concern?
I think
If
so.
he's going to be, yeah, and he is.
He has
That's
to
the
be.
he has to be because he's
Yeah.
he's been at the club for so long, and it's
Also,
not
I
like he's
think
become a
case
bad
in
player.
point, look at Sporting's rotation of
Yeah,
fullbacks. They never
yeah,
played just the
that is a
same
great
two
example.
fullbacks
Yep,
every single game. He is going
yep,
to rotate these players. I don't care
yeah.
what people are saying. Yeah.
Absolutely,
It's just
I'm with you there 100%, and
yeah,
that goes for Kuna Mbumo as well, because you have Mount now, who is clearly
playing well.
uh,
Yeah.
in the best shape of his life at United, which is not a high bar to clear, to be honest.
Yeah,
So he's right up there, and I think, for example, playing against Arsenal, right, it could easily be something like Kuna up top, Mbumo Mount in the tens, and then Bruno plays behind them.
that's exactly
So
it. Yeah.
yeah. So if there's so much uncertainty, why would you risk it? Like, I just feel like Dorgu is such an unnecessary risk. Also because with so many new players, this is not FIFA. Come on, I mean it's going to take time for a team to gel, right? What do we expect from United? I mean, I'm
Uh,
ecstatic that we are signing good players, but let's say we sign, that midfielder from Brighton, and then we also sign Donnarumma. It's going to be almost like a completely new team, and I just feel like team chemistry matters so much more than we give credit for. So I'm not going to go there at all, even though I feel like he's going to have a breakout season.
yeah. Yeah. Um. Oof. Um. I'm trying to think about if there's any kind of overarching questions. I did actually like the question on Fulkrug as a 6.0, right?
That's what
Because
I was
we,
saying. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
We can probably close on this one.
yes.
He's a weird one because I feel like he had such bad underlying data last season. I kind of feel like that's why his numbers from a modeling perspective are exactly as bad as they are. But I also don't think he could possibly be that bad. Does that kind of make sense? I don't really know.
No, it does. It
Um,
does. Also, again, we have to remember he's one of those players who has some weightage tilted towards headers. He is good at headers, and so uh, naturally his finishing is going to tend towards positive when it comes to XG versus goals deficit. So this is a great point actually you make. Like, for example, if a player is just not first choice for a season and is just left out for most games, then do you just, because you know how modeling works, like you will take you will give the highest
exactly.
weightage to his previous season
Yeah.
because that is the closest proximity. What do you call it? Wow, I'm completely closest proxy to his current uh,
Yeah.
underlines. So maybe there is a case to be made that you just look at his final season at Dortmund rather than anything else and go off that. But then the problem, as you know, is that if you want to be consistent in the methodology, you can't do that. So
Yeah. It's a trick.
unfortunately,
I think that's kind of
yeah,
what case in point for like what Solio is, right?
yeah,
If you
yeah.
think that Fulkrug's running XG is really poor and you want to
Mm.
play around, like that's what the Solio tool will allow you to do. Um, because yeah, I think intuitively running so like Fulkrug at extremely high minutes, it still is a bit bewildering exactly how bad the EV is, right? Like
Mm.
you can't tell me that someone playing 90 minutes versus Sunderland is gonna get 4.2 EV. I'm sorry, I'm just not gonna believe it. Um,
No, 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 for sure, for
yeah,
sure. And again, see, the problem I always feel with tinkering with expected value is if you don't have a good handle on probabilities, I feel like you will always make the wrong decision or you will always put in values that are too high because
could be.
emotions
Yeah,
more likely than not overrule probabilistic thoughts
yep,
or thought process, and so it's really, it really depends. But I think this is a very good case, and maybe it's worth looking at Fulkrug at the end of this season. And if he does revert to his last season at Dortmund, that is, I think, a great edge case for us to discuss and maybe to model as well, because I'm thinking from a Champions League modeling perspective, where there is even more of these scenarios, right? A player could be left out for the early part of the season, and by the time Champions League comes by, he's back in the team or something like that. So there are always these things that come with stability. And I think if Fulkrug is going to get stable minutes this season, then there's definitely something to be said for that.
yep. Yeah. Instinctive has also shared some latest quotes from Hertzler, if anyone cares for
Yeah.
them. On Jorginho Rutter versus Welbeck, he said it's not a decision between him and Danny. They played last season together. He said Jorginho is always an option. He is very playable in this position, which is basically a non-answer because he's
Yeah.
just said he can play striker and they can play together. Which is great, but I think that gives you like like an overwhelming sense of comfort over, in my opinion, Jorginho's minutes. But maybe, yeah, we'll still see at the start of the season a Welbeck starting up top. But I also just think, why do we even care about what Fabian says? He did also kind of wax lyrical on De Kuiper, but not that that really matters. I feel like we already kind of knew that De Kuiper was going to be a good pick. It's just
He's a minutes fraud. De Kuiper is a minutes fraud.
he's
That's
a
all we knew.
minutes fraud.
Yeah, from the Euros, right?
Oh yeah. Well, that was just a painful part of my life. I'm actually interested. Sorry, because is he? I haven't like I think I've played around with his minutes, but I still think he's like technically worse than an Anderson potentially. And I think
Honestly,
part of it's
when I
because,
saw his underlines, I thought he would be a shoe in. Like,
but it's the
it's
DEFCON
insane.
piece, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of the thing that DEFCON is like completely changed. It's like you're almost making the 4.5s more playable because they just have smoother games.
Correct.
Which is actually better for rotation than like, oh, I have 5 from De Kuiper in one match per se, and then I can like never play him again for a long run. Whereas like Anderson might have, let's say, I don't know, like 3.5 EV for like 6 weeks in a row. Well, he also plays for Fulham, so that's a huge help. Like they're just a much better defense. But I guess what I'm saying is there's more value to that from Anderson's POV.
Yep.
But if you have De Kuiper, I guess like, yeah, you just pray for that goal and clean sheet in that one game where he, in theory, smokes Anderson for 15 weeks. Because that's how probability
or the
works.
penalty, right? Or the penalty
Well, yeah,
that you were
to be
talking
fair,
about. Yeah.
he's actually got penalty share and review. He does.
What is it, like 8-9%?
No, it's like 40%, and he's still
Oh,
pretty
what?
suboptimal.
Oh, okay. That's kind of damning, right? If he's not showing up with 40% pain share, that's kind of crazy. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
You learn something new.
Yep. Pretty interesting.
Hmm.
Probably we should. You know what we should have also brought to the table? I guess we should have also brought I guess reviews numbers for the same players that we were talking about. But then you have to pay for review for that, so that's why we don't share.
Exactly. I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good indirect ad for review. But
Yes. Yeah.
okay, I think we're good.
Yeah. Yes. So I think we'll stream on Wednesday, right? So that will be the final episode before the season starts.
Yep, that will be.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment whatever you feel about the episode. If you feel like, so I posted last week, and I asked people what they would want from like members, and I think a fair few voted, and they're talking about data behind the viz, which is, I mean, I can always provide that. That's pretty easy.
yeah.
If they want. Yeah.
All
Sorry,
right.
I interrupted you. You're going to say
No,
something.
that's all right. I think we're good to go. Thank you all
Okay.
for
Take
watching.
care, everyone.